It hasn't been working since when?
When U.S. Inspector General John Sopko is on site in Afghanistan, it's not for sightseeing. You said billions of dollars in Western foreign aid to Afghanistan has been lost due to widespread waste, lax oversight, and endemic corruption. That sounds bad.
Fraud and corruption will kill Americans, it'll kill allies, and it'll kill Afghans. And that's why we're doing the job.
Winding down America's longest war and legacy of waste.
For generations, America has dominated the advanced science that came from the space age.
Hello.
But there's a new race for a technological high ground.
I think what is unique about artificial intelligence is that these technologies could more radically disrupt the global balance of power.
And it scares the hell out of me.
One of the visionaries of our time, Elon Musk, says AI scares the hell out of him. Does it to you?
Ocean Drive in South Beach, Miami. Palm trees and warm breezes. On this street where cultures meet, there is little division over a media that seems to have lost track of the message. Do you trust the media?
No.
No. No.
So we asked, how can the news gain back the public's trust?
Welcome to Full Measure. I'm Sharyl Attkisson. We begin with Afghanistan, our longest war in U.S. history. Late last year, President Trump first raised the idea of withdrawing U.S. troops from Afghanistan entirely. He also took a swipe at then outgoing Defense Secretary General James Mattis.
What's he done for me? How has he done in Afghanistan? Not too good. Not too good. I'm not happy with what he's done in Afghanistan, and I shouldn't be happy.
The Afghan war has claimed the lives of thousands of U.S. soldiers and wasted billions of our tax dollars. Our newest assessment comes from John Sopko, the Special Inspector General for Afghanistan Reconstruction.
Get my goats.
When U.S. Inspector General John Sopko is on site in Afghanistan,
Control the other phases, I'm working.
it's not for sightseeing.
But the contract said this should be tiled.
Yes.
And the walls should be tiled.
Yes.
And there should be working stoves. Were there any working stoves here?
Ever since we inspected, we never found one.
On this day, he's inspecting yet another building our tax dollars paid for.
Thank you. So is this supposed to be air conditioning?
Yes, sir.
And wondering where all the money went.
See, Lieutenant, when we built this building, it was supposed to be tile, clean tile, tile up the walls. It was supposed to be working stoves. Fire.
17 long years into America's war in Afghanistan, one thing is clear: there's more frustration than progress.
But we paid for tile for your government, and you didn't get it. It was not installed. Okay.
In the Afghanistan conflict going on now, why is it we're there and what is it we're trying to do?
It goes back to the attack of 9/11. And we went in there because of the fact that was a training ground for terrorists who attacked us and later have attacked our allies. So we went in to help the Afghans kick the terrorists out, as well as develop a government that could keep them out. And that's why we've been there for 17 years.
In 2017, President Trump approved the Pentagon's request to add thousands of soldiers to the 11,000 troops already in Afghanistan. U.S. commanders were given more leeway to strike the Taliban, al-Qaeda, and ISIS terrorists. Last July, Secretary of State Mike Pompeo said the changes seemed to be effective.
My conclusion from this visit is that the president's strategy is indeed working, where the Taliban's momentum is slowing.
But 4 months later, America's top general, Joseph Dunford, admitted the Taliban are not losing. In all, more than 2,400 U.S. soldiers have been killed. The Islamic extremist Taliban remain dominant and spreading. The Afghan government is mired in corruption, and billions of U.S. tax dollars have been lost to waste, fraud, and abuse. How much U.S. tax money has been spent on Afghanistan reconstruction?
Reconstruction alone is $132 billion.
You said in a report to Congress that billions of dollars in Western foreign aid to Afghanistan has been lost due to widespread waste, lax oversight, and endemic corruption. That sounds bad.
That's correct. We have wasted billions of dollars. And not just us, but also our coalition partners have wasted billions too.
You found that money is being allocated for equipment and salaries for people in Afghanistan who don't actually exist, so someone must be taking it.
Absolutely. What happens is the commanders or some corrupt official will take the money that's supposed to be going to a police officer who doesn't exist. And this is an endemic problem throughout Afghanistan.
Are there any new examples of projects that you're taking a look at that you feel are perhaps ripe for waste, fraud, or abuse?
A senior military officer for the U.S. government warned me that NATO is now planning to build a 6-story, 120,000 square foot headquarters for the NATO military there. Now, just stop for a second. That sounds good on its face. But we haven't had a new headquarters there for 17 years. We had 140,000 NATO troops there over 17 years. But now, when our troop population has gone down, we're thinking about trying to eventually get out. Why do you need a new headquarters? And this goes back to things we've identified before, that the way the government works, and it's not just the U.S. government, it's also NATO, once the process starts, once military construction starts, it doesn't stop, even if you don't need it. So we're going to be looking into that.
SOPCO's job as Inspector General is made all the more difficult because it's so dangerous in Afghanistan. He and his team can't move around freely to inspect all the projects they need to. Last November, more than 50 people were killed when a suicide bomber attacked a wedding party in the Afghan capital, Kabul. What did you see on your last trip? What will we see in those photographs and images?
Well, we went out to a major construction project that we did for the Afghan military. It's called the General Fahim Training Center. It's for the senior officers and technical officers of the Afghan military. And what you will see is a major problem we have. We build buildings, but the Afghans can't maintain them. We don't consider the training for the Afghans. A wastewater treatment plant that is no longer functioning, raw sewage is flowing into a stream, and it's all because the Afghans don't know how to fix it. You will see a second wastewater treatment plant we built, brand new, never been turned on, because no one taught the Afghans how to turn it on. You will see a water treatment plant that hasn't been functioning for years because the Afghans are incapable of designing or working with the system we gave them to input the chlorine. So none of the water is being cleaned.
It hasn't been working since when? 2015. So for 3 years it hasn't been working. But we built it, contracted to have a working chlorinating system.
So these are millions of dollars of programs and millions of dollars of construction that are not being used. So what you're seeing is a constant problem. We give them buildings, we give them programs, we give them equipment, but we don't plan for sustaining it. How can they sustain it, either through training, money, or the will to sustain these programs? So there's a lot of waste.
One final point of failure has to do with the opium trade. Afghanistan is the world's leading producer of illegal opium and is still churning out record amounts despite the U.S. presence. You've reported that since 2002, the U.S. government has spent more than $8.8 billion on counter-narcotics efforts in Afghanistan. Despite this, Afghanistan's opium trade is as robust as ever.
That's correct, and I think it's approximately 30 to 40% of our GDP is now narcotics related.
How can that be?
Poorly designed programs, unwilling partnership by the Afghans, and we don't have a strategy. To this day, we still don't have a strategy. And what we reported in our last quarterly report is we see no efforts being made on counter-narcotics anymore.
Do you ever feel like you're banging your head up against a wall?
Almost every day. You should probably ask my wife about that. I come home a lot, frustrated. But it's not an easy job. If you want an easy job, don't become an inspector general. And if you want a lot of friends, don't become an inspector general. But that's the job I was assigned to. That's the job everybody who's working for me. And it's a tremendous group. I got 200 people, investigators, police officers, engineers, auditors, analysts. They're all doing a tremendous job. It's the best group I've ever worked with in the government. But we do get frustrated. People forget there's a war going on. Americans are dying. Money's being wasted. And people also forget that fraud kills. And we've documented that. So fraud and corruption will kill Americans, it'll kill allies, and it'll kill Afghans. And that's why we're doing the job. And that's a little bit of the frustration is you don't have people focusing on this anymore. That's why we appreciate coming over here, talking to you. There are very few reporters in this town who are spending as much time as you do on Afghanistan, which I think is so critical as we go forward.
In another development, President Trump said it is, quote, insane that SOPCO's reports are made public because it allows the enemy to see them. But watchdogs say making the reports public helps prevent the Pentagon and defense contractors from hiding any waste, fraud, and abuse. Ahead on Full Measure, it's the space race for a new age. But should we embrace or fear artificial intelligence? What would we find if we could look into the future? Will we be living like the Jetsons, served by machines? Or will we be trying to battle the machines like the Terminator? Today, there's a new technology race that pits the U.S. against both China and Russia. It's the race for AI, artificial intelligence, which many believe will define the century and maybe our survival. Lisa Fletcher reports.
It was a defining moment of the 20th century.
Listen, Tranquility Base here. The Eagle has landed.
After more than a decade of lagging behind the Russians in the space race, the U.S. launched Apollo 11, putting men on the moon, and the U.S. in first place, with implications that went far beyond space exploration.
That's one small step for man.
For generations, America has dominated the advancing technologies that came from spaceflight, building a space station, then the reusable space shuttle. Now it's the U.S. that finds itself in another race, this time with Russia and China, for arguably the highest stakes yet, the race for AI, artificial intelligence.
Do you see parallels between what's happening now with AI and the space race of the 1960s?
There clearly are a number of parallels.
Elsa Kania is an analyst focused on Chinese advances in artificial intelligence.
Hi. I think what is unique about artificial intelligence is that these technologies could prove quite far-reaching in their implications and perhaps transformative in ways that could more radically disrupt the global balance of power.
In 1957, it was a sound that awakened America to Russia's advances, from the Soviet satellite Sputnik. In the race for AI, it was a game that convinced the Chinese to go all in.
You've identified what you think was China's Sputnik moment, only it wasn't a satellite. It was an ancient Chinese board game.
Yes, so it was quite striking that when AlphaGo, an AI system developed by Google's DeepMind, defeated Lee Sedol in the game of Go in the spring of 2016.
Go is an ancient and highly complex game deeply ingrained with war strategy. So when leaders in Beijing saw AI beating the best human, they knew it was time to act.
That was not only a moment that really highlighted the rapid advancement of AI technologies, given that previously experts had predicted that the game of Go couldn't be solved by an AI for another 10 to 15 years perhaps. That was also a moment that highlighted to Chinese leaders, including military leaders, that these rapid advances in AI could pose a strategic challenge to China.
Do you have a go-to game-changer technology when it comes to AI?
There is a lot of concern and very active development of swarming capabilities, or the idea of using swarm intelligence to create swarms of hundreds, perhaps someday thousands of drones that could be used potentially as an asymmetric capability on the future battlefield.
One place the U.S. does have an advantage is talent. Kenya says we lead in innovation. And the Pentagon's own high-tech innovators at the Defense Advanced Research Projects Agency, or DARPA, have increased their spending in AI, getting as much as $2 billion to invest in future projects. And over at NASA, where space is the final frontier, AI is a new tool to go where perhaps man doesn't even need to go himself.
If you look at the Mars rovers and some of the experiments that we have going on space station and all that, a lot of that is incorporating AI into that day-to-day operation of the vehicle because time delays of transmission.
Tom Engler is the director of Center Planning and Development at the Kennedy Space Center. He showed us around the control room last used for the space shuttle.
Do you think there's a natural intersection between space and AI?
You can't robotically teleoperate a vehicle on Mars. You have to turn it loose and let it do its thing. And so I'd say that the way in which we've designed a lot of these deep space probes and planetary explorers incorporates AI in a large way so that they can accomplish their mission with minimal guidance from ground-based controllers.
To help speed up innovation and keep places like the Kennedy Space Center busy in a post-space shuttle universe, NASA has thrown open the gates to private industry. Leading the way, SpaceX, which now flies off the old Apollo moon mission launch pad. Its founder, Elon Musk, has his own view of AI's potential to change our world.
I'm very close to the cutting edge in AI. And it scares the hell out of me. It's capable of vastly more than almost anyone knows. And the rate of improvement is exponential.
One of the visionaries of our time, Elon Musk, says AI scares the hell out of him. Does it to you?
I think personally, in the foreseeable future, there are more reasons for concern about the weaknesses and vulnerabilities of AI technologies that are becoming more pervasive in use than about its potential for becoming the Terminator.
Stuff that seems so funny in the movies does sometimes come to pass later, not just science fiction anymore.
It is not, and a new study of attitudes about AI shows overwhelmingly Americans, 82%, say they think AI needs to be very closely managed, and they think it's going to be more harmful than helpful to humanity. The things Americans are most concerned about: surveillance, spreading of fake or harmful online content, and AI being used to initiate cyber attacks.
Very interesting. Thanks, Lisa. Coming up on Full Measure, the media and the public. A trip to sunny South Beach, Miami, Florida to ask about trust in our industry. South Florida is the summer place to be. We head to sunny South Beach, Miami to ask people what they think about the state of journalism. Josie Sturman tells us the assessment of the media doesn't match the climate.
Ocean Drive in South Beach, Miami. Palm trees and warm breezes, and a focus that tends to be more on parties than issues. South Beach is flashy, the party crowd largely young and maybe a little self-indulgent, but not without an opinion, especially when you start asking about the state of journalism at an iconic hangout named for the news. Do you trust the media?
No.
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 Why not?
I think a lot of things that they put on the media is, no, it's not true. It's fabricated.
On this street where cultures meet, there is little division over a media that seems to have lost track of the message.
I think Donald Trump is correct. Sometimes the media is, like he says, fake news. Yeah, not everything you hear is true. So, I'm a believer in that.
Did you always feel this way about news, or is it different lately?
No, I'm 75 years old, and it's only happened like in the last 20 years. Journalism is just not the same.
What changed things?
Just the next generation and what they expect from sensationalism instead of news.
It's so segmented now, whereas, in the past, everybody got their news from the major networks, ABC, CBS, and NBC. So when people were doing it that way, then it wasn't so segmented. Now it's so segmented that it seems like everything is opinion journalism.
Opinions about journalism were as easy to find as a cool tropical drink along the beach. What do you think about the media?
The media, in my opinion, the media is very important nowadays because without the media we cannot know anything about the other countries.
I'm more like papers, reading the papers, and everything online now. It seems like it's become like a maze.
I wouldn't say all journalism is bad, you know? I think for the most part they've done a great job propelling us forward in a lot of issues.
But way before this South Beach generation, even earlier than the Art Deco architecture, came the notion that the media, the so-called Fourth Estate, was important to the Republic. That still seems to stand, as does the idea that it can regain the public trust. What do we do to win back people's trust?
Wow, that's a hard question. I'm not sure about that.
All you need to do is have honest journalism and go back to reporting the news, not opinions.
If it's an opinion, to say it's an opinion, and to call a thing, you know, rather than sometimes there's a false equivalency where journalists will present things as opposing views as equal when they're not really equal.
I think if they want to regain the public's trust, they got to be fair. They got to report with a bipartisan frame of mind. I believe in America, and I believe that, you know, we believe in reporting facts, and I think we just need to stop being so divided, just kind of come together as a country.
In South Beach, Miami, I'm Josie Sturman for Full Measure.
We hear you here on Full Measure as we bring you original reporting every week. We're back with a look at what's ahead next week right after this. Next week on Full Measure, a new California regulation requires solar panels on nearly every new home built. But solar advocates are split on whether this landmark rule actually helps or hurts the cause. Do you think in a general sense there's a trend here that as California goes, so will go the rest of the nation, or at least the sunny states?
Clearly, that is the way that this is going to go. And it's not necessarily a good thing, because I think California is moving prematurely on this technology.
What is the problem?
I just don't like the quality of the panels that we're getting and the fact that no one bothers to differentiate between crummy panels and not quite so crummy panels.
Is the same initiative coming to your state? Surprising new information on the massive solar mandate next week. Until then, we'd love to interact with you on social media. We'll see you on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram, and we'll be searching for more stories that hold powers accountable.